What's up, world? This is the HowToIDo channel, and I am your host, Ed Gray. Today, if you've watched any of these videos, then you already know what I'm gonna say. Yep, we have another good one for you. And this one is titled Separation Anxiety. We're gonna dive right into that right after we get back from this. Alright, and we are back. And again, today's topic is on separation anxiety. And it's not what you may think. I'm gonna talk a little bit about babies to kind of paint the picture of where we're gonna be going with this subject. Separation anxiety, as a general definition, is the disconnect of an emotional bond. And this is especially true as it relates to the mother-child type relationship, okay? So, according to Kuhn and Mitterer, babies around the age of 2 to 3 months have a really strong preference to their mothers, especially over strangers. Around 7 months, babies generally have a particular affinity for their mothers, to the point that if they can crawl, then they will definitely attempt to crawl after mom. I gotta find her. Where did she go? I don't know. But the true sign that there is a bond or an attachment really happens between the ages of about 8 to 12 months. Between 8 and 12 months is when you'll find that the child begins to cry when the mother leaves from the room, or if the child begins to feel alone. This is a really pivotal time, and this is generally when we find out that there is a genuine attachment between the mother and the child. An infant generally cries for the mother because the mother has nursed the baby, the mother has comforted the baby, she's been a protector, she's been just a general ever-presence in the face of the child. The problem with most people is that when we begin to believe in Jesus Christ, that is often where we stop. If you haven't watched our previous video, where we really dove into the Jesus aspect of your marriage, then definitely when this is over, go back, take a look at that, and this will make a little bit more sense. But this is generally where most believers stop, is at the baby stage. And that's okay if you only care about, making sure that your spirit is saved in the great by and by. The only problem is that we live in the great now and now. When you believe in Jesus Christ, your spirit is saved from eternal damnation, okay? But your soul is steadily being saved. Remember, your soul is your mind, your will, your feelings, your emotions, things of that nature. This is why when you accepted Jesus into your life, you still had certain affinities for certain things. So if you wanted to go to Keisha's house, fellas, you hear me? If you wanted to go to Keisha's house, didn't just fall out. You didn't just stop wanting to go to Keisha's house just because you got saved, just because you accepted Jesus into your life. You still wanted to go to Keisha's house. If you had a bad attitude, your bad attitude didn't just go away because you accepted Jesus into your life. That's a tough one for some of you. But it didn't just go away. You may have become more conscious of your words, But your attitude didn't just fall off because you accepted Jesus into your life, because your soul is steadily being saved. So, as I always ask you, what does any of this have to do with marriage? And as I always say, it has everything to do with marriage. But here's the thing, it's vital that Jesus is in the triangle of your marriage. Remember, I always say you have Jesus at the top and then you and your spouse at the bottom if we're doing this. Alright? But if we only know Jesus at the baby stage or the believing stage, then we don't get anxiety when we are no longer in his presence. Okay? You see, though salvation may not be primarily about works, how you survive in this life that you live is heavily dependent on your relationship with Jesus Christ. So it is vital that you stay in his presence by consuming his words, so that like the baby, he can nurse you. And when he nurses you, then also like the baby, you can know him as a comforter. And when he has comforted you, then you can also know him as a protector. So that when his presence is no longer felt because you have stopped searching for him, then you should have some form of separation anxiety. And you should, like the baby, be crying out for him because you miss him. And you should, like the baby, be crying for him because you are missing him, which causes you to fall on your knees, right? And crawl after him because you have separation anxiety. The problem with most marriages is that we don't have any form of separation anxiety because we are stopped at the simply believing aspect. We're still babies in this. And we wonder why our marriages are falling apart or are simply hanging on by a thread. It's because we stopped at the simply just believing aspect of knowing Jesus. Or we're still in the baby phase, right? We don't have the spiritual nutrients that are needed to supply our soul so that we have something to draw from in our soul and in our mind to know without a shadow of a doubt that whenever we may be experiencing difficulties in our marriages, that this too shall pass. But when you forge a better relationship with God, then that assists you in forging a better relationship with yourself. Right? And when you have a better relationship with yourself, then you can be better prepared to have a better relationship with your spouse. Because his influence navigates your thoughts, right? And thereby your actions. So then maybe, just maybe, we can then begin to realize that everything that went wrong or is going wrong or is not right in our marriages isn't totally your spouse's fault. Just saying, maybe. Don't shoot me. Because when you think with his thoughts, then you will begin to search yourself first. Remember, priorities. Search yourself first before you proceed in any manner that skips you and places the blame at the feet of your spouse. But even in that, you don't use your measuring stick. You measure by his standards. And when you fall short because you have drifted away, then there should be some sign of separation anxiety for you. And that's often, again, where we fall short, because we stop at the baby just believing area. You have to keep moving forward. You have to keep pursuing God. You have to keep crawling after God. If you no longer see or feel His presence or seek His presence, remember, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all of these things will be added to you. But again, it's priority. So if you are drifting away or have simply a casual relationship with God, then strengthen that bond. You should have some separation anxiety. You should be crying for Him. You should be missing Him. If you haven't felt His presence, if you haven't been in His presence, if you haven't opened your word, if you haven't been seeking His presence, seeking His kingdom first, seeking His righteousness. Because these are the tools that strengthen your marriage. I know it may not make sense. It may not seem like it makes sense, but I can assure you that when things are prioritized correctly, when He is prioritized correctly, then when you no longer feel His presence or sense His presence or are seeking His presence, then you will feel some form of separation anxiety. And that's the sign of the real bond, is that when you're not around Him, because He doesn't leave us, we leave Him often. But when you no longer feel or sense His presence, you should be like, man, I don't feel God, man. Let me get into it, so that you can realign yourself with Him. And when we have this realignment in place, then this realignment right here is much easier, because our priorities are right. But that's where I'm going to stop here, is that, again, just if you don't have separation anxiety when you aren't in His presence, then tighten that up. Well, that's all I got for you. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment. We want to hear from you. Log on to our website at HowToIDo.org and visit us on all of your social media platforms at the HowToIDo with Ed and Sharita. Well, that's all I got for you. I'll holla. Peace.